So a question my friend asked me the other day is, who would you have on the Justice League if you were writing it? And while I plan to tell him my team, I thought about the last time I really enjoyed a Justice League comic. One that captured the essence of the heroes themselves, that put them up as the greatest protectors of Earth that would do anything to keep people safe. You know, the team of amazing heroes coming together that we can all root for. Well, it turns out that the movie isn't the only one that was having issues to give us some great Justice League content. Now, Justice League is a very, very long running series. It hasn't always been what you actually imagined it as. See, a lot of people grew up with the Justice League cartoon, and while I was never much into cartoons like that as a kid, I can see why a lot of people love it. But this video is focused on the comics, and in 1997, a little known writer, and when I say little, I mean one of the biggest names in the industry, Grant Morrison came on to write JLA. Those three letters changed everything. Morrison and Howard Porter not only revamped the team, but he made it into a smashing success, selling more issues than DC had ever hoped for. So what did Morrison do to bring the big team of heroes together? Well, for one, he put Batman, Superman, and Wonder Woman on the team. Morrison, despite my personal issues with some of his stories and writing, sure knows how to give and write bombastic stories. He's also a great businessman, and he unleashed to the world the Trinity with the backing of other huge heroes like The Flash, Green Lantern, Aquaman, and Martian Manhunter. This run ran 41 issues, with a couple of issues in between written by other writers, and really showcased the big event type storylines without the event tagline. You had these big fights with like the White Martians, the new incarnation of the Injustice gang lead by Lex, other big villains of course, or creating villains into bigger threats like Prometheus. You also had big what if storylines, and probably one of the biggest ever in this run, and people went crazy for it. But this wasn't the end. There was actually more good Justice League content. After Grant Morrison left the title, DC knew they just couldn't let this one slip into the hands of anyone, and they gave it to Mark Waid, who jumped on and gave a few big stories, the biggest one probably being the Tower of Babel. In this infamous storyline, Batman has to take down the entire Justice League, and while there's some blame going around that he basically created Batgod, a term used when people think Batman is just too perfect and too powerful. It was really an entertaining story and a really somber ending that I absolutely loved. And DC would kind of go on to just kind of give decent storylines from here on out. I mean, in the 2000s, DC kind of felt like they lost touch with JLA already. I'm not dismissing writers like Joe Kelly and Kurt Busiek and the infamous Identity Crisis, which is a huge seller and mostly focuses on most of the members of the JLA. And that was basically the topper to the JLA titles at the time. I think they're all fine stories, but besides Identity Crisis, none of them really made a splash after the Tower of Babel. We then got into a reboot of sorts with the Justice League, and they're recruiting more members, creating bigger teams, and this ran for a few years, but without really making any notable storylines. A lot of interference from DC editorial, and a lot of these stories came off half-baked, didn't get to do what they wanted to do, and overly dark for no reason as it got later into the run, and that's just not interesting. Now you're asking, is that really it for DC, that they just never had another major hit with this team? Well, depending on what you count as a hit, we did have Jeff Johns on the New 52 Justice League, and for better or worse, he decided to go a very Hollywood route, and it wasn't half bad. The first arc pretty much feels like a movie, and that's great. That's what Justice League needed at the time. Well, I think the later half of the run, the Dark Side War, I was not a fan of at all, but it did solid numbers and did bring back up the popularity of the Justice League. Then DC launched Rebirth, and holy shit, did this series suck. I mean, it was one of the worst written comics I have ever read, hitting my top 5 worst DC comics every year, or comics just in general. It didn't help that it never really fully recovered after the terrible start. Even bringing in like a megastar like Scott Snyder to take over, it got just way too big and way too caught up in events, leading to a very bloated and honestly not very fun run. I think Snyder is an excellent writer, but his Justice League was not, at least in my opinion. Since then, the Justice League continues to struggle. Let's be honest. Writers I admire like Jeff Loveless and Christopher Priest try, but they can never capture the magic that happened in the late 90s or even in the very early 2000s. DC decided to give the title to Bendis in hopes that he create another new Avengers scenario, which pretty much saved the Avengers in the mid-2000s and brought them back to popularity. However, this was not the case. In fact, no one I know is reading Justice League by Bendis, and he himself is now stepping down from it. So my whole question in this video is why? Why hasn't there been a good Justice League run in so long? Sure, we have Elseworld or non-canon stories with the Justice League that worked, but nothing in the main line. Nothing that hit as big as it once was. Is it because the team is just too large, or is it because it's ever changing, or is it just not important to have a big Justice League team like that? Is it because then, when they created this, or when Morrison came on, it was fresh and new, and now it's kind of stale and just not that interesting? These are the big questions. My theory on how to fix Justice League would be strip it back to the basics with a smaller core team. Honestly, 5 or 6 members at most. We also don't need every big hero on there like Batman and Superman. Why not just have 2 big heroes like Wonder Woman or Green Lantern and a few newcomers that get this going, like get the mentorship going. That's a big thing in comics. People love somebody mentoring somebody. I feel that mixed with more real world threats or smaller scaled events might make it work. I don't want to see other gods from other worlds coming down and destroying the world. It's just kind of boring, and we've done that a million times already. Listen, there's just no simple answer how to fix this series. I don't know if we can ever make the impact that we did in 1997, but I want to believe that one day we can get a Justice League book that I can't get enough of. For now, I just kind of casually read them, but mostly on Hoopla because I just can't even spend my hard-earned cash supporting this. But what do you guys think? Did you guys enjoy a Justice League run recently and you're just like, shut up, man, you don't know what you're talking about? If so, please be respectful in saying that down in the comments below. Or if you're with me and you really want a good Justice League story, what do you think we can do or ask for that can create such a great scenario again to bring the JLA back up in popularity? I would love to hear what you guys think below. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I'll be back.